want you to have this.
Forrest, I can't keep this.
That's Tom Hanks, of course, as sweet and innocent Forrest Gump, of course. And as you must know, the American movie-going public has fallen in love with Hanks as Gump. And so this special edition of Siskel and Ebert, a show trying to explain it all, a show we're calling Why Gump, Why Now? I'm Gene Siskel of the Chicago Tribune.
And I'm Roger Ebert of the Chicago Sun-Times. On this special program, we're going to try to account for one of the most surprising phenomena in recent movie history. Week after week after week, Forrest Gump continues to attract theaters full of people who in many cases don't usually go to the movies. In late August, Forrest Gump became the fourth fastest film in history to pass the box office $200 million mark. That put it behind only Jurassic Park, Batman, and The Lion King. Why has this warm-hearted fable about a man with an IQ of 75 touched such a nerve with the public? I think the key word here is fable. People know the story stands for more than meets the eye.
What's my destiny, Mom?
You're gonna have to figure that out for yourself. Life is a box of chocolates, Forrest. You never know what you're gonna get.
The second time I saw Forrest Gump was in a small-town theater in northern Indiana. It was packed for the early show, and some of the people around me said they'd seen this movie 2 or 3 times, so I asked them why they liked it so much, and they sort of smiled and shook their heads. They didn't know. Now, usually people know why they like a movie, but Forrest Gump's appeal, it seems mysterious.
Well, they may not know, and we may not either, but we're going to try to figure it out. Now, first, not to take anything away from the creators of Forrest Gump, the novelist Winston Groom and the screenwriter Eric Roth and the film's director Robert Zemeckis, but I think you have to admit that part of the success of Forrest Gump has to be credited to Tom Hanks, who with Gump now has compiled an incredible 4-bagger of hits, one right after the other, marking him as one of the most popular American actors of our time. Just look at what led up to Gump in his films, all available on home video.
There's no crying in baseball!
Why don't you leave her alone, Jimmy?
Oh, you zip it, Doris!
2 years ago, in A League of Their Own, Hanks was hilarious and quite affecting as the grumpy, boozy, profane, but lovable manager of one of the first women's professional baseball teams. Hanks next scored with Sleepless in Seattle, the wildly popular romance with Hanks playing, well, maybe just the sweetest darn guy you'd ever want to meet, and he's got a kid, and his wife just died, and I think I'm going to cry if he doesn't find cute Meg Ryan and marry her and live happily ever after.
I want you to know that your son called, and he asked me for some advice on how you might find a new wife.
Who is this?
Next, another change of pace, but always Hanks is a decent guy. This time in Philadelphia, playing a homosexual, AIDS-infected lawyer, fired from his job, looking for another attorney to take on his discrimination suit, when all the world thinks he's some kind of leper.
How many lawyers you go to before you call me?
9.
And finally, 4 in a row, with films that will end up grossing nearly $1 billion worldwide, Hanks as Forrest Gump. With Hanks's characters of late, the emotional pull is simply this: if they're not happy, life's not fair.
I'm not a smart man, but I know what love is.
Tom Hanks, 4 in a row. Right now, you have to put him up there in popularity with Kevin Costner, Harrison Ford, and Tom Cruise. Tom Hanks, he's a big reason why Gump, why now?
There's a real quiet confidence in his work. When we come back, we'll look a little deeper into the story of Forrest Gump, trying to explain what accounts for its success.
It's my boat.
Continuing our special show on Why Gump, Why Now, I think the viewing of Forrest Gump has become an almost religious experience for a grieving nation, for an America that still hasn't come to grips with the last 30 years of political assassinations, White House corruption, a war that wasn't won, sexual abuse scandals, and drive-by shootings. The national mood is, woe is me, woe is us. Tell me, tell us a nice bedtime story. And I think Forrest Gump is that story, that parable, that story of a sweet American who survives that very same 30 years of pain.
Lieutenant Dan, what are you doing here?
Well, thought I'd try out my sea legs.
But you ain't got no legs, Lieutenant Dan.
Yes, I know that. You wrote me a letter, you idiot. Well, well, Captain Forrest Gump. I had to see this for myself.
This film is like a college cheer. Forrest, Forrest, he's our man. If he can do it, maybe I can.
David put me on a thing called the All-America team.
If there's a single image that I think sums up the appeal of Forrest Gump, it's the moment late in the picture when Forrest runs across America, and as we see him rush past the great pure American landscape, we see an unspoiled man in sync with an unspoiled land. That's the all-American fantasy of Forrest Gump.
I think you're right, Gene, that in this movie, Forrest Gump is us. Forrest Gump is America. He's somebody who's been knocked down, but he's gotten back up again. He doesn't understand everything, but he keeps on plugging. He holds on to these eternal values that his mother gave him and that his society gave him, and he still believes in them, and he still keeps plugging away. And I think sometimes that's the way we feel, shell-shocked by the headlines.
Yeah, I think it really is this sort of bedtime story. I don't mean to demean the plot. It really is that level of storytelling.
Okay, one of the keys to the success of the film is very simple, I think, and that's the way the story is actually told. It covers so much ground and so many things have to be explained that it just about has to be narrated, and the obvious narrator is, of course, Forrest Gump, but if we only heard his disembodied voice on the soundtrack, I think he'd sound too omniscient, and after all, one of the points is that he doesn't quite understand his own story. So the movie puts him on a park bench and supplies him with listeners, ordinary Americans. And as he tells these ordinary people his story, Tom Hanks' own unaffected, natural style comes across.
She wanted me to have the finest education, so she took me to the Greenbow County Central School. I met the principal and all.
I want to show you something, Mrs. Gump. Now, this is normal. Forrest is right here.
And there are some other elements that are important to the film's success. For example, the movie actually makes not one, but two parallel tours through recent American history. While Forrest visits the White House and fights in Vietnam, Jenny's voyage, the voyage of his childhood and lifelong friend, is through the counterculture. So all of the bases are covered. Then there's the film's genuine humor. Despite Forrest's low IQ, he overcomes every obstacle and he becomes a success every single step of the way, and that's funny.
Why did you put that weapon together so quickly, Gump?
You told me to, Drill Sergeant.
Jesus sakes. This is a new company record. If it wouldn't be a waste of such a damn fine enlisted men, I'd recommend you for OCS, Private Gump. You are going to be a general someday, Gump.
The comic strategy of Forrest Gump goes back a long way in American comic and literary tradition. This is basically a story told by a man who is saying a whole lot more than he realizes, and the humor is generated by the difference between what he knows and what we know. Mark Twain wrote stories like that, and Will Rogers told stories like that, and in the 1950s, Andy Griffith had a best-selling comedy record that used a technique so similar I thought of it while watching Forrest Gump. His record was called What It Was Football, and he plays a man who has never seen a football game before.
And I think that it's some kindly of a contest where they see which bunchful of them men can take that pumpkin and run from one end of that cow pasture to the other without either getting knocked down or stepping in something.
It's a great comic tradition. America loves the idea of that little innocent guy, you know, typically down south, who's smarter than all of the big city guys. No matter whether you live down south or not, that's in our culture, and we always fall for it. Forrest Gump was directed by Robert Zemeckis. He's Hollywood's reigning expert on combining live action and special effects. In his movie Who Framed Roger Rabbit, he put actor Bob Hoskins into scenes with cartoon characters.
Jeepers, Eddie, that was swell. You saved my life. How can I ever repay you?
We'll talk about some of his special effects in Forrest Gump when we come back.
I'd kind of like to see that.
Continuing this special show about Forrest Gump, let's look at the technical artistry that made it possible. Special effects have been used since the earliest days of the movie to put characters where they could not possibly be in real life, but only in recent years have computers been used to combine living actors with historical footage so they appear to be in the same scenes with people from the past. Clint Eastwood showed himself as one of Kennedy's Secret Service agents in The Line of Fire, but no movie has done more with the technique than Forrest Gump, and the result is that Gump really does seem to be making a trip through our media memories. Creating the scene where Gump meets President Kennedy was an intricate process involving three major steps. First, a technique called blue screen is used. Here we see Tom Hanks making very specific movements in front of a screen that will later be replaced by documentary footage and shots of the other actors in the scene.
That rhythm that they're doing it, Tom. Shake, shake, shake. Right? It's bump, bump, bump.
Then the scene is shot with other actors, including a stand-in whose scripted dialogue will eventually come out of JFK's mouth.
Congratulations. How does it feel to be an All-American?
Very good, sir.
And how about you? How do you feel?
I gotta pee.
Finally, computer experts work with the film's director, Robert Zemeckis, to delicately combine the new footage with actual newsreel shots taken inside the Kennedy White House.
Congratulations. How's it feel to be an All-American? Very good, sir. He goes, and how do you feel, young man? I gotta pee. See, not cut. Yeah. So I need a longer piece on Kennedy for the first guy.
The result, one of the funniest and most convincing scenes in the movie.
Congratulations. How does it feel to be an All-American?
Very good, sir.
Congratulations. How does it feel to be an All-American?
Very good, sir.
Congratulations. How do you feel?
I gotta pee.
I believe he said he had to go pee.
It validates our liking for Forrest Gump that Kennedy likes him too. A lot of the movie's special effects scenes create that same multi-layered effect. They work as effects, and they also work in spite of being effects.
I think that's very true. We do smile at seeing these familiar American icons again. I think part also of the artistry of Forrest Gump comes in the screenplay by Eric Roth, based on Winston Groom's novel. You know, we always get complaints. We don't credit the writers of the material enough. I'm now going to do it. And the artistry is this, that every time the story starts to approach getting sappy, there's a joke that undercuts the emotion and turns our wince into a smile. An example? Here's one where Forrest, on the way to basic training in the Army, befriends another simple guy, a shrimp fisherman named Bubba, played by Michael T. Williamson. Their incredibly sweet friendship needs a laugh to make it palatable.
People call me Bubba. Just like one of them old redneck boys. Can you believe that?
My name's Forrest Gump. People call me Forrest Gump.
You can see the same smile inserted in Forrest's other primary relationship in the film, his love affair with Jenny. He'll get all sappy with her, and then there's a joke that cuts through the sugar.
Have you ever been with a girl, Forrest?
I sit next to them in my home economics class all the time.
Yes, there's technical artistry in Forrest Gump, but also in its story construction, in its very written words.
You're absolutely right that they're able to bring it up to a certain emotional peak and then break the tension with a laugh. For example, you talked earlier about his cross-country run.
Yes.
And it's so noble, and there he is running through Monument Valley, and his hair grows long. He looks like Jesus Christ. And then, of course, the guy comes up, the T-shirt manufacturer and the bumper sticker manufacturer, and you get just those moments to puncture the balloon. So
it doesn't
the laughter is a laughter of relief in the theater because people don't have to get all serious all the time.
Listen, I call this a religious experience for people. Sermons can get real boring, but not if they have humor coming every few minutes.
Okay, when we come back, the artistry of Tom Hanks. We'll look at some of his earlier work now available on home video.
Continuing our special show on Forrest Gump, the phenomenon, part of the credit for the success must go, as we've mentioned, to its star, Tom Hanks, whose career has been amazing for someone who is generally considered to be basically a light comedian. I first noticed Hanks a decade ago in the funny but short-lived TV sitcom Bosom Buddies, which was basically a TV version of Some Like It Hot, with a couple of guys masquerading as women. Hanks and his co-star Peter Scolari play a couple of struggling advertising men tossed out of their apartment who wind up living on the cheap in a woman's residential hotel.
And this is my sister, Buffy.
You look like a Buffy.
I never thought so.
To Hanks's credit, after his success in Splash, he began to stretch himself dramatically, taking on more substantial, serious roles just a few years later. In Nothing in Common from 1986, he played another ad man who takes time off from making commercials to deal with his bitter, recently separated salesman father, Jackie Gleason.
So, Mom left. Do you see anyone else here?
You gotta tell me about this situation. We're gonna play 20 questions.
2 years later, in Punchline, mixing comedy and drama, Hanks played a stand-up comedian who reluctantly becomes big brother to someone new to the harsh world of stand-up, frustrated housewife Sally Field.
Lady, it takes every night. 6 clubs a night, all night. It takes working stag parties and Elks Club banquets where you open for accordion player.
That was 1988. Hanks was really getting rolling now in the movies, but still playing the friend, the buddy. Little did we realize he was getting ready to take center stage, that there was some real depth to the seemingly just breezy, funny guy.
He was so breezy and so funny that it took us a long time to catch on that he was also so good. Although Tom Hanks has been in a lot of realistic movies, most notably Philadelphia, I think he's also one of those rare actors who can carry a fable, a movie obviously not real on any level. And most of my favorite Hanks movies are, in one way or another, fantasies. Here he is in Splash, his first big hit in 1984, as a young guy in business who was astonished to find that a mermaid has fallen in love with him.
She's really hungry.
And in Big, in 1988, he played a kid who wanted to be a grown-up and got his wish.
Chopsticks.
Hanks got an Oscar nomination for Big, but my choice for the most unfairly overlooked of all of his films is Joe versus the Volcano from 1990. In that one, he played a factory clerk being driven crazy by the satanic working conditions in his office.
The coffee, it stinks. It tastes like arsenic. These lights give me a headache. If they don't give you a headache, you must be dead. So let's arrange a funeral.
Some actors can only work when they're grounded in reality. They're famous for the painstaking preparations that they go through in getting ready for a role. Other actors seem to suggest that acting is more like playing let's pretend. In all of those roles and in Forrest Gump, Tom Hanks cuts loose from the realism of method acting and he ascends into fantasy. He takes us right up there with him.
I think you're right. I think he is a reaction to, and the response to him, and also the response in a way to Kevin Costner as well, is a response to the dominant actors of the 80s, and that would be Robert De Niro, for one, playing the heavy, fine actor, but playing these heavy roles. And there is a part of the public that just doesn't want to enter into that world, that wants to stay in the fantasy world, and Tom Hanks is there to provide for them.
Okay, coming up next, if you like Forrest Gump, Gene and I will each have a home video rental suggestion of a film that might remind you of Forrest Gump. Now let's close with some home video recommendations of films that seem connected in one way or another to Forrest Gump. I thought at first of choosing a film that had the same kind of whimsical fantasy, but then somehow a very different film came into my mind, and that film was Oliver Stone's Born on the 4th of July from 1989, with its Oscar-nominated performance by Tom Cruise. Ron Kovic, the hero of this film, traces out a journey that could be the dark side of Forrest Gump's odyssey. He is also born in the innocence of the 1950s.
Are you going with someone to the prom?
Like Forrest Gump, he goes to Vietnam and sees terrible things there. He's involved in a peace demonstration rally. And he also yearns for a woman who cannot return his love.
I'm so sorry for what happened to you, Ronnie.
Born on the 4th of July and Forrest Gump are telling similar stories in completely different ways. They're both American odysseys with the Vietnam War as the centerpiece. One uses gritty, shocking realism. The other uses fable and fantasy, and both of them take us on a tour of recent American history and inspire us to think about where we've been and where we're going.
That's a very interesting choice. And thinking about a Gump-like film, I could have chosen another picaresque novel on film about a 4-letter character starting with G, not Gump, but Garp, The World According to Garp, with Robin Williams and his journey through American life. But Garp on film isn't quite as good as Gump, so I'm going to choose a perfect film about another perfect innocent, Being There from 1979, with Peter Sellers in the story of a mysterious man named Chance, who only knows what he knows from watching TV. Chance is such an easygoing innocent that people begin to take his every bland statement for wisdom.
I do not read papers. I watch TV.
Do you mean, Mr. Gardner, that you find television's coverage of the news superior to that of the newspapers?
I like to watch TV.
Thank you, Mr. Gardner.
You're welcome.
Well, few men in public life have the courage not to read the newspapers.
Innocence masquerading as wisdom. The more I think about it, I like the double bill of Forrest Gump and Being There. Point and counterpoint with a smile. I think your double bill's good, too.
Okay, well, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
The whole thing about Forrest Gump is it makes you think about how you relate to the movie, how the movie relates to you, and what you think about it. You just can't leave it in the theater. It comes home with you.
That's exciting.
Okay, that's it for this special show. Next week, we'll be back with reviews of some new movies, including The New Age, starring Judy Davis and Peter Weller as a yuppie couple in financial and emotional distress. And also The Shawshank Redemption, starring Tim Robbins and Morgan Freeman, in a prison drama based on a book by Stephen King. That's next week, and until then, the balcony is closed.